Alright, United States Code Annotated Title 50 War and National Defense Chapter 35 International Economic International Emergency Economic Power, 1701, Unusual Extraordinary Threat Declaration, National Emergency Exercise Presidential Authorities. Any authority granted by the President in Section 1702 of this title may be the exercise to deal with the unusual extraordinary threat which has one source or whole substantial part outside of the United States. The national security, foreign policy, economic United States and President declare the national emergency with respect to such threat. B. Authorities granted by the President in Section 1702 of this title may not only be exercised to deal with the unusual, extraordinary threat respect that the national emergency has declared for purpose of the chapter may not be exercised for any other purpose of any exercise. Such authority to deal with any new threat shall be based on the new declaration of national emergency, which must be with respect to such threat. 1702 Presidential authorities. At the time of the extent specified in 1701, the title of the President may, under such regulations, it may prescribe the means of instruction, license, otherwise investigate, regulate, prohibit any transaction, foreign exchange, transfer credit payments between and by, through, or to any of the banking institution to the extent such transfer payments involve the interests of a foreign country or national thereof. Um, importing, exporting currency or securities by any person respecting any property subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, investigating, block during pendency investigation, regulate, direct, comply, nullify, void, prevent, or prohibit any transactions, holding, withholding, use, transfer, withhold, transportation, importation, exportation of, dealing in, or exercising right or power, privilege with respect to, or transaction involving any property in which any foreign country or a national thereof has interest about any person or with respect to any property subject to jurisdiction of the United States. And C. The United States is engaged in armed hostilities or has been attacked by a foreign country, foreign national, confiscate any property subject to the jurisdiction of the United States of any foreign person, foreign organization, foreign country that he determines, plan, authorize, aided, or engaged in such hostile hostilities or acts against the United States. All right of the title interest of the property confiscated shall vest when, as upon the terms directed by the President in such agency or person, the President may designate from time to time upon such terms, condition as President may prescribe, such interest or property shall be held, used, administrated, liquidated, sold, or otherwise dealt with the interest or for the benefit of the United States as designated agency or person may perform any of all the acts incident to the accomplished furtherance of the purpose of exercising authorities granted by the paragraph 1. President may require any person to keep the full record of or to furnish under oath in form of reports, otherwise complete information relative to any action or transaction referred to in paragraph 1, either before, during, or after completion thereof, of the relative to the interest of foreign property or relative to any of the property in which foreign country or national thereof has or had had any interest or as otherwise necessary to enforce the provisions of such paragraph. In any case which the report may be a person could be required by under this paragraph, the President may require production of any of the books, account records, contract letters, memorandums, other papers, custody or control of such person. Compliance with any of the regulation, instruction, direction issued under this chapter shall extent thereof be full acquaintance over the acquaintancy and discharge all purpose of the obligation over the person making the same. No person shall be held liable in any court or for with respect to anything to do with admitted with a good faith in connection with the administration of or pursuant to and reliance on this chapter any regulation, instruction, direction issued under this chapter. Authority granted to the President by this section does not include the authority to regulate or prohibit directly or indirectly any postal, telegraphic, telephonic, or other personal communication which does not involve a transfer of anything of value, donations of any person subject to jurisdiction of the United States, articles such as food, clothing, medicine intended to relieve human suffering, except to the extent that the President determines such donations, A, would be seriously impair his ability to deal with the national emergency declared under Section 1701 of this title, B, in response to coercion against the proposed recipient or donor, C, would endanger armed forces over the United States which engage hostility or are in situation with the imminent involvement of hostility clearly indicated by the circumstance or the important from a country or exportation to any other country, whether commercial or otherwise, regardless of the format, medium of transmission, or the information over the information or informational materials, including not limited to publications, films, posters, phonography, records, photographs, microfilms, microfiche, tapes, compact discs, CDs, ROMs, artworks, newswire feeds, exports exported. The regulation prohibition of the paragraph does not include from the which of the otherwise control of the export section 2404 appendix of the title under section 2405 of the appendix of the title of the extent of such control promote with the non-proliferation or anti-terrorism policy of the United States, or with respect to which of the acts are prohibited in Chapter 37, Title 18. Any transaction, ordinary incident with a travel to or from any of the country, including importation of accompanied baggage for personal use or maintenance with any of the country, including payment of living expense for the acquisition of good or service for personal use, and arrangement or facilitation of such travel, including non-scheduled air, sea, land voyages. Classified information. Any judicial review of the determination made in the section determination was based on classified information defined in Section 1A, Classified Information Procedure Act. Such information may be submitted to reviewing court ex partes in camera. Subjects does not confer to imply any right to judicial review. 1703. Consultation reports. Consultation with the Congress. The President in every possible instance should consult with the Congress before exercising any authorities granted by this chapter. Should consult regularly with the Congress so long as such of the authorities are exercised. Report with the Congress, exercised by the presidential authorities. Wherever the President exercised by the authorities granted by the chapter shall immediately transmit to the Congress a report specifying the circumstances and necessity of such exercise authority. 2. Why the President believed the circumstances constitute an unusual, extraordinary threat which in source are in whole substantial part of the outside of the United States. To the national security, foreign policy, economy of the United States authorities exercise the actions to be taken and exercise of the authorities deal with these circumstances. Whether the President believes such actions are necessary to deal with those circumstances in a foreign country, any foreign country with respect to which such actions are to be taken, such actions are to be taken with respect to those countries. Periodic follow-up reports at least once during each succeeding 6-month period after transmitting a report pursuant to subsection B of this section with respect to the exercise authorities under this chapter. The President shall report to the Congress with respect to the actions taken, and since of the last such report the exercise such authorities with respect to any changes which have occurred concerning the information previously furnished pursuant to paragraphs 1 through 5 in subsection B of this section. Supplemental requirements of this section supplement to those contained in Title 4 of the National Emergencies Act, Title 50 U.S. Standard Code Authority 1641. 1704 authority to issue regulations. President may issue such regulations, including regulations prescribing definitions as may be necessary for the exercise of authorities granted by this chapter. 1705 penalties and lawful acts. It should be unlawful if the person violate, attempt to violate, conspire, violate, or cause violation of any license, order, regulation, prohibition issued under this chapter. Civil penalty may be imposed on any of the person who commits an unlawful act described in subsection A of the section amount not to exceed greater than $250,000 in amount with twice the amount of the transaction that is based on violation with respect to the penalty imposed. Criminal penalty: a person who willfully commits and willfully attempts to commit, willfully conspires to commit with the aids and abets for the commission of the unlawful described in subsection A of the section shall the conviction not be fined no more than $1 million, or if the natural person may be imprisoned for no more than 20 years or both. 1706 saving provisions. Termination of national emergency pursuant with the National Emergencies Act. Except for the provided in subsection B of the sanction that was deemed with the termination pursuant with the National Emergency Act, Title 50 U.S. Standard Code Authority 1601 and 10 sequence. National emergency declared for the purpose of the chapter authority granted by the chapter with exercise of the day with such termination on the basis of the such national emergency prohibited transaction involved with the property in foreign country or the national thereof that has any interest may continue to be exercised prohibited transaction involving that property if the President determines that the continuation of such prohibition with respect to the property is necessary to account over the claims involving such country or its nationals. Notwithstanding the termination authorities described in Section 101B of this Act and such authorities which are exercised with respect to the country date such termination to prohibit the transaction involving any of the property such of the country, any of the national thereof, with an interest may continue to be exercised. Prohibit transaction involving the property over the President determines for the continuation of such prohibition with respect to the property necessary to account over the claims involving such country or its nationals. Congressional termination of national emergency by concurrent resolution. Authorities described in subsection A1 of this section may not continue the exercise under the section if the national emergency is terminated by Congress or by concurrent resolution pursuant to Section 202 of the National Emergency Act, Title 50 U.S. Standard Code Authority 1622, if the Congress specifies that such concurrent resolution for such authorities may not continue to be exercised under the section supplemental saving the provisions superseding consistent provisions section supplemental savings provisions paragraph 1, 2, and 3 of section 101A and Title 50 U.S. Standard Code Authority 1601A 1, 2, 3, and of paragraphs A, B, and C of Section 202 of the Title 50 U.S. Standard Code Authority 1622A A2, A, B, C of the National Emergency Act and provision section supersede termination provision section 101A of Title 50 U.S. Standard Code 1601A of Title 2, Title 50 U.S. Standard Code Authority 1621 and 10 sequence. The National Emergency Act, to the extent of the provision section inconsistent with these provisions, periodic reports of Congress. President wants uses the authority of the section to continue with the prohibition transaction of other foreign property interests. Shall report with the Congress every 6 months of the use of such authority. 1707 the multinational economic embargoes against governments in armed conflict with the United States. Policy establishes embargoes. Its policy in the United States that upon the armed forces of the United States to engage in hostilities against any of the foreign country, president shall appropriate seek establish multinational economic embargo against such countries. Seek the seizure of the foreign financial assets. Report to Congress no later than 20 days after the first day of the engagement with the United States hostilities described in subsection A of this section. President shall, if the armed conflict has continued for 14 days, submit to the Congress the setting of the fourth. The specific step the United States is taking will continue to take an establishment multinational and economic embargo to initiate financial asset seizure pursuant subsection A of this section, and any foreign source of the trade revenue that directly or indirectly support the ability of versatile government to the sustaining military conflict against the United States. And that was United States Code, Annotated Title 50, War and National Defense, Chapter 35, International Emergency Economic Powers.